Welcome, Dem Go Bucks. Buckeyes seem to be dropping like flies, Matt. I don't know what's going on. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks that are in the transfer portal and Kyle McCord. What's going on with him? Love to see hear what you have to say about all these things, Matt. But how's it going?
Doing all right. Yeah, I'm afraid to even put my phone down for a second because someone else is going to go in the portal or someone else from another team is going to be going in the portal, and Ohio State could be interested in them. It's just total chaos right now.
Yeah, it is total chaos. Are you actually even wearing anything Buckeye related? Please tell me you are. This is looking okay, good. At least you're wearing a hat or something. My gosh. Yeah. So Chip Trayanum. What the heck is up with Chip Trayanum?
Well, so initially when I saw that, I was upset because I really like Chip Trayanum. He's a good receiving back, and he's, the last 2 years, he's the only Ohio State running back that actually had a good yards per carry against Michigan. I know, on the year, he only had 4.4 yards per carry, which is pretty average in college. But against Michigan this year, he was pounding the rock, but they never stopped him. I mean, he was getting 6.5 yards a carry against you guys, and then for some reason Ryan Day just didn't give him the ball anymore. And then last year, the first half when we were winning going into halftime, he was running the ball really effectively, and that was the first time he had started all year. And then the second half, they just didn't run him at all. So that's 2 years in a row he was running well against Michigan, and for some reason we didn't give him the ball. And that's not why he's leaving or anything, but it was just weird. But anyway, so I was initially disappointed, but then I was like, well, Evan Pryor, the young running back who was, injured last year and 2 years ago, and then this year, he was just behind a bunch of people, so he didn't get to play. So he is leaving in the transfer portal, and then you have Mayan Williams is going pro, and now Chip Trayanum is in the portal. So you have Dallin Hayden would be the presumed running back, but a lot of rumors in the last 2 hours are saying that the reason why Chip Trayanum is going, and the others probably too, is because TreVeyon Henderson is coming back.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if TreVeyon came back, but I kind of expected him to leave. And I don't know why TreVeyon coming back would stop Chip. Right? Like every team needs at least two.
You know why? Because Dallin Hayden, the only reason I think Dallin Hayden didn't get more play this year was because, well, first of all, he's not that good at blocking, but he's definitely one of the two most talented running backs in the roster. And after another year of in the system, I'm sure he'll get the blocking figured out by next year, and he would probably be number two because he redshirted, so he only had 4 games he could play this year. And Chip knows that it's going to have Dallin Hayden and TreVeyon Henderson and 2 to 3 running backs coming in next year. So his he wants to start, and he could probably go start somewhere.
I guess, but I mean, it just seems like Evan Pryor's leaving, not that he was necessarily a threat, but you'd think TreVeyon would want to stay. I just don't get it. It would be like Donovan Edwards leaving because Blake Corum came back. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, every team uses at least 2 running backs.
Yeah, well, I know. Like I said, I think TreVeyon and Hayden are the 2 most talented backs. So I think the only thing that would be weird here is if TreVeyon is going pro or something like that, because then it wouldn't make any sense. Because he's definitely a good number 2, and he's good. He's a good power back to wear people down.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Fans have all just been clamoring for what's his name, Dallin Hayden, which is hilarious because he's had maybe 1 or 2 good games against bad competition. And
now, don't say that around Diego, because
why does Diego love Dallin Hayden?
No, because his bad competition he had a good game against was Maryland.
Yeah, Antoine, you're right. Donovan Edwards definitely needs to stay. I mean,
you know what, Antoine? Who do you think is more? Not talking about NFL. Who do you think is the more talented running back between Corum and Edwards? Because I thought last year Edwards was the more talented running back, and then this year you guys lose your All-American center, and then you replaced him with another transfer center, I think. And for whatever reason, the blocking wasn't as good this year, and Corum can still make something out of nothing. But Edwards, it seems to me, maybe he just needs better blocking to excel. I'm just trying to think of why his running was down, his yards per carry was down big time this year, and I thought he was the better back. And I mean, Corum wasn't great this year. He had 1,000 yards and an okay average for college and just a ton of touchdowns. So like he's really good once you get inside the 3-yard line, and then he gets lots of 3-yard touchdowns. But he didn't have hardly any big runs this year.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and Antoine's answering, and I agree with him. I think Blake is at least the better pure running back, I would say. Edwards is kind of
maybe before injury too. He doesn't look the same this year.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if you're right. Blake doesn't look the same this year, but
he was a freak show last year. Like he had his. I mean, part of it was your better line last year. Your line isn't as good, but why both running backs are down significantly this year.
Yeah, it's that has to be the line. I mean, we lost some guys, but it's very surprising that they are. And it just might be the way they're calling plays and they were throwing a little more, but it does seem like the running game is just a little more stuffed than normal.
I mean, Corum's like 3 yards to carry less this year. I mean, not Corum. I mean, Edwards. And then Corum's is like a yard per carry less or something. So
how's it going, Ryan? Sorry we don't have Diego here to argue with you. You're probably happy about that, but we're going to block Diego or put him in timeout if he comes back and is talking trash. But yeah, I mean, I've always thought Blake was the better pure running back, but maybe I thought it was possible, at least at the end of last year, that Donovan would actually maybe be the better pro quarterback or pro prospect, because of his versatility in the pass catching. And I figured an NFL team would probably take Donovan ahead of him, but not this.
Yeah, the pass catching is definitely more important in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, I just saw last year because he was like he was the home run threat, and he was just, I mean, everything he was doing was great, like all around as an all around back and home run threats. Like, I don't know, but then this year he just is falling off. Yeah,
very true, very true. I think, but yeah, I mean, getting back to the transfer portal for Ohio State, yeah, there's some red flags going on. What are there 13 now for Ohio State? 13 guys. Granted, they're not all starters and they're not all guys that you probably.
So is it a red flag, or is it we're trying to be like an SEC team and we're trying to recycle our players that aren't ever going to start?
Yeah, it's got to be part of that. Julian Fleming. I mean, that makes sense that he leaves.
Yeah. I mean, I liked him because he was like the only receiver we had that could block really well. So he was like actually probably more important for blocking, and he made some good third down. Unfortunately, it just, Kyle wasn't a good enough quarterback to get him involved this year. I mean, he was open a lot, and Kyle wasn't finding him. I mean, you look at last year with CJ. Like, he had good numbers. He had probably 7 touchdowns and 700 yards or something last year, and this year only had like 2 touchdowns and 300 yards, 200 yards, like not very much.
Yeah. And then like to the quarterbacks. So Honda McCord is gone, right? Kyle is leaving. We were all shocked. It's only a couple days ago since that happened, but it's been talked about a lot. So we don't necessarily need to rehash it, but it's man, like some guys were talking about it that I was watching today. Like, he was 11-1, played really good against Notre Dame, and his numbers were good. He had a pretty high QBR. Not that really means that much. I mean, he lost to Michigan.
After watching. So yeah, we always argue with Diego a lot. He thinks that QB rating is more relevant than QBR, and I'm not really sure I fully understand the differences that well. But in college, I guess they use QBR more, and in NFL I don't know. It seems like QB rating. I think his QB rating is quite a bit lower, but and his QBR is pretty good. Like for most of the year, he was top 10, and he doesn't look like a top 10 quarterback to me. Like he has no running ability. I mean, granted, he was hurt his ankle and hasn't been able to run at all. Like not that he was a running quarterback, but he lost some ability. And I don't know. It seems like our quarterbacks definitely do better when we have someone that can run a little bit. Especially, in rivalry games and stuff, it's just so much harder to stop someone like that. So I think almost every Buckeye, when JT Barrett was quarterback, everyone was like, we don't care if we get a guy that can run. We just want someone who can throw it accurately. And then we get all these accurate passing quarterbacks. And then we're like, man, we don't care about passing. We just want someone who can run for a first down or get score touchdowns in the red zone running. And, hopefully we can find someone that can do both, like Justin Fields. That's really what we need. Is there a Justin Fields in the transfer portal?
Yeah. So, okay, the two guys that I think it seems makes the most sense for Ohio State anyway, not that I want Ohio State to get them, is Cam Ward and Dante Moore. Dante Moore broke my heart leaving Detroit and going over to UCLA.
So
was
Moore,
UCLA,
was he a freshman this year?
He was. Superstar freshman. Yep.
Was he a true freshman or a redshirt?
True freshman.
Okay, so did he start all year or did he get benched?
I think it was the very first game he came in and took over for the guy who started. Then did really good, won the game, had a couple other good games, and then just went downhill, like hit a wall. So Dante Moore makes sense. He's a younger guy. He's going to be a sophomore. So if Ohio State wants to take someone super talented, he was like a top 5 overall pick, I think, or at least top 10 overall recruit, regardless of position. But he was like the number 3 quarterback because I think there were some other quarterbacks that came out that year that were really good. So superstar, got lots of talent. I wanted him to go to Michigan so bad, but he didn't. And now he's in the portal. So, of course, I would totally take him. I would totally take Dante Moore for Michigan. I don't know if he's going to choose to come to Michigan because we don't know what JJ's going to do. He's probably going to want to know that before he would make a decision like that if he was considering Michigan. But, and it's kind of crappy because he's going to have to wait a month at least because I think the transfer portal is open now, but it's not going to be till January 10th, 12th, something like that before the last game is played. Of course, if Michigan loses the semifinal, a little earlier, but still some time. But for Ohio State specifically, seems like Dante Moore and Cam Ward would be, definitely 2 quarterbacks I'd be considering.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the least risky option, not who's necessarily better, but, Cam Ward being a 1-year rental while we have Devin Brown, Lincoln Kienholz, and Aaron Nolan, and that's not going to upset the quarterback room. So, getting the UCLA quarterback instead would potentially screw everything up, and you'd have a bunch of people maybe transferring out. So that seems, unless you think that he's a surefire 100% can't miss quarterback, and obviously Ryan Day is a better evaluator of talent than we are. But if you really think that he's the guy, then you go and get him no matter what. I don't necessarily think he is, but what do I know? I would just take the safer bet and get someone who can come in for a year and compete. And it's not. I mean, who knows? He might not even beat out Devin Brown and Lincoln Kienholz. We have no idea, but it's good to have someone that can get in there and compete. But we're gonna have to pay $2 million to get him in there just to potentially be the starter.
That feels like overstated, that number. But yeah, Cam Ward, at least you know what you're getting. And have you looked at his numbers at all? Because I think I made fun of some of his numbers. With you.
Yeah, he had a lot of his QBR wasn't good. So he's like one of those guys. So he makes plays. I don't know if you watch his highlights. He makes plays like Caleb Williams does. Like he's had tons of Caleb Williams plays where, they almost sack him. He's spinning around, going up, going back, and then going in a circle and just making ridiculous passes. I mean, but then, he also, in addition to the highlight plays, he makes bad passes too. So it's like one of those things where he makes the really good passes, but he also, unlike Caleb, he's not as consistent. And he also has, I guess, questionable mechanics in his throwing motion. So that plus his fumbleitis. But some of the fumbling could be just because he's getting sacked a million times because he's on Washington State with a bad offensive line.
I'm
not as worried about that.
He took 39 sacks this year.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So he had 39. He's going to get, he's going to get 5 or 10, maybe at the worst at Ohio State. I don't know.
Better offensive line, better receiver, better everything at Ohio State. So, so let me ask you then, what do you want to happen at Ohio State? I mean, you've got a couple options. Dante Moore. I don't know if you'd want Dante Moore. I would. Cam Ward, or stay with who you got.
So I definitely bring in Cam Ward 100%. I don't think I would do Dante Moore just because I think that you're going to lose 2 quarterbacks if you do that.
2 quarterbacks that wouldn't be starting anyway, though.
Well, they might. We don't know what Cam Brown and Lincoln Keenholz will do. They haven't. Devin Brown, I mean.
And you do with both. If it was a transfer quarterback, you would at least know what you're getting somewhat, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen them play big time football. Like, we haven't seen Lincoln I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. The freshman dude, Lincoln, and Devin Brown. Haven't seen anything out of them.
Yeah.
We just know that neither one of them could beat out Kyle McCord. So
here's the thing with that. If you believe a lot of the rumors that were being reported, that his dad was basically the one that Kyle's dad was basically just saying, he has to be the starter and this and that, or if he's not, then we're leaving, we're transferring. And because apparently he was told, Ryan Day told him that he was going to be in an open competition even for the bowl game, and he was just like, I'm out of here, I'm not going to compete for it, either you name me the starter or I'm out. And if you believe the rumors that Zach Smith talked to the coaches and they had a vote on who should be the starting quarterback, and more people voted for Devin Brown, more of the coaches voted for him than they did for Kyle. And then Kyle somehow won. So we don't know how that happened or if that's accurate or not. How much interference his father had. And, I guess it's also the easier choice, knowing if you pick Devin Brown as the winner there, then Kyle's 100% transferring because he's the older quarterback. But if you go with Kyle, and then you get to keep everybody, and if he doesn't work out, then you can always put Devin in. So it's sort of like the safer pick. It's sort of hedging your bets a little bit. It's not as risky to pick him, because if he would have, let's say, lost a couple games or did poorly, they could have just gone to Devin. Whereas if you put in Devin from the start, then Kyle would have just immediately transferred.
Yeah, well, and one of the downsides of this whole thing too is, now that Kyle's gone, like, you've lost that whole first year starting quarterback process.
Unless you get a transfer quarterback.
Unless you get a transfer quarterback.
I mean, it might just be now from all the top schools, like the Oregon, FSU, Washington, Michigan, everyone. It might just be renting quarterbacks, for 1 year from now on. Because it's way safer. Why risk developing someone when you could just find someone who's already good and you just buy them for a year or two?
Yeah, to a certain degree. I mean, I don't think the really, really good, talented quarterbacks generally they don't generally transfer. Usually, you're getting guys like what we're seeing now. Dante Moore, that's the exception.
Well, there's Dylan Gabriel too. We haven't talked about him.
Dylan Gabriel, he's probably going to Oregon though, right? Probably. I mean, that's what it sounds like, and so that's weird too. Who knows what's going on there?
The reason I heard with him was, they had an amazing 5-star quarterback behind him, who what is his name, Darnold or something, Jackson something. What do you remember his name? The 5-star at Oklahoma. Anyway, they said that they were not wanting to lose him, so they said for him to leave.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's truly amazing. But Buckeyes are definitely losing out on that whole year. I mean, Kyle McCord went through the fire. He really did this past year. And now the Buckeyes are losing the benefit of that. This year 2 for him could have been really good. You don't know. He might have taken big steps up. But, obviously.
Yeah. Obviously the coaches did not have faith in him at all. Otherwise, they would have kept him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like Antoine was saying, his Buckeyes just can't handle the criticism right now. It's crazy. And you got to think about how different things would be if Ohio State would have found a way to beat Michigan. How them being in the playoffs right now, everything would be different. Kyle would be a great quarterback. Everything would be flipped on.
Well, no, he would still have a job. He wouldn't be a great quarterback. People have been complaining about him all year.
He'd be the best.
No, he's not the best. Just because Iowa won a lot of football games this year doesn't mean their offense is the best.
Yeah.
Their punter is about to set a record for the most punting yards since 1938.
Yeah. And Antoine, what he's saying right now is true. It says the problem with Ohio State, they're used to getting high-level athletes and out-athleting Michigan, but Michigan is beating them with skill and scheme. No longer you can just put athletes out there. And it's true. I mean, it's right. I mean, Michigan definitely leveled up throughout this whole process. And Ohio State lost some of their mojo. I don't know what happened, but it's definitely a loss for them.
Yeah, it seems like we've had a hard time getting consistency, like in all the group. Like we're not like developing or recruiting in all areas at the same time. Like we always seem to be having like a year or two gap in certain areas. So like we have these amazing offensive teams, and then we just forget to recruit or have defensive coaches that are any good. You know, so like we ruin some of the best offenses we've ever had because we just have awful defensive coaches and awful defensive players that none of them are going to the NFL. And then, you know, we start getting some good defensive linemen and some good corners and safeties finally, and a good defensive coordinator. But then we have liability because the linebackers are still awful. You know, we don't have good linebackers now, at least not against the pass. You know, I was watching some of the older games, and you know, like our linebackers, we used to have really good linebackers. You know, they could actually cover tight ends amazingly. Like I missed that. And then on offense, you know, it's so important to have a good offensive line. And you know, it took all year to finally get a decent offensive line. Obviously, they weren't even close to being good enough. Like the PFF grades against Michigan were awful. And you know, you got to be better.
Yeah.
And I knew, what did I say at the beginning of this year before we even started a game? I was like, you know, the one thing I think is going to hold us back this year, I think our defense is going to be way better. You're like, I don't believe you because your defense was trash last year. And I said, the defense is going to be better. The offense is going to be good. But I think that if we don't win it all, it's going to be because we had a couple of years where we transferred offensive line coaches. And in that transition couple year period, we lost out on a ton of offensive line recruits, and we were just missing left and right. And I was like, we don't have anybody at offensive line. Like, there's no stars coming in. Like, we have no like elite players at the offensive line, and we have our center left early, who we didn't think. You know, centers rarely leave early unless they're really good. And somehow our center went in the third round or something crazy last year, and you know, after starting 1 year, and because we were expected to lose both tackles, but losing the center too was brutal. So we had to replace more people than we thought we would. And our offensive line was just pretty much, you know, just average. I mean, you're not winning the division if you have an average offensive line.
Yeah. Offensive line, defensive line, it's all built kind of around that. And we're starting to see that with Michigan. And that's what they improved. But with Michigan, though, they also really improved at quarterback. They haven't had, ever since Harbaugh got there, they've never had a stud quarterback. None like JJ. And Cade wasn't a stud quarterback by any means, but he was competent. He was a very competent quarterback.
Like, I mean, the funny thing is, you guys still didn't pass for a lot of yards. It's not like it's like Henny and Hart, and you're throwing for 3,500 yards or something. You know, with Braylon Edwards and everything. I mean, it's still. You imagine if you guys actually had legitimate receivers or something. You know, I mean, there's still a ways to go.
Don't get me started on the receivers and just the downfield passing game, because
I mean, that's going to hold you back against Alabama. I think
it is.
The only teams that ever really beat Georgia and Bama, you got to have elite receivers.
I don't know. I don't necessarily know that we need to have elite receivers to beat this Bama team, but
their secondary is really good. Their secondary, they have like 3 unbelievable secondary players.
Oh yeah, Bama, they're amazing. So maybe we won't be throwing the ball like we didn't against Iowa.
Well, I mean, you have to throw to the tight ends. I think that's the only thing you got to. I don't think you're going to be able to run very well. I don't think you'll be able to pass to the receivers. I mean, if you can, you know, basically whoever makes the fewest mistakes. It's not like your offense did much against Iowa. It's just, you know, you capitalize on them being not able to do anything on offense, and Bama might not be able to do much on offense either. I'm not expecting them to be able to do much offensively against you guys.
Well, Michigan is definitely going to be more creative on offense versus Alabama than they were against Iowa. I mean, we've seen it just too many times where Michigan plays real mid against some mid team, and then the next game is Ohio State, and they come out, blazing their hair on fire. So I
It's
don't.
gonna be. I think it's gonna be such a low scoring game. I think because both those defenses are really good. I think it's gonna be, probably in the. I think if both teams get to the 20s, it'll be shocking to me. Maybe low 20s,
Maybe low 20s. Maybe. I mean, Michigan's still favored by Vegas for some reason. Somehow that
Yeah, it's
that
like
line hasn't
it's like
moved.
1 point.
Two and a
1
half
point.
points. Is it 1 point now? So
Yeah.
it has gone down some. Yeah, I'm expecting it to. And yeah, I mean, versus Alabama. Yeah, who do you got in that game? I'd like to hear who you think is going to win that. I'm guessing you think Alabama's going to win, right?
Well, I haven't looked at everything closely. The thing that has me worried about them is their offensive line has gotten better, but they're still, like, even against Georgia, they gave up 4 sacks, I think. So I mean, they're giving up 4 sacks a game, and they're getting 4 sacks a game, roughly a little under that. But that's the average of the season. The line has gotten better, even though Georgia, of course, is being a great defense, is going to get some sacks. But the key is going to be, which quarterback is going to make the clutch third down throws. Now, I think I have faith in JJ to make clutch third down shorter type throws. But what Bama is good at, what Jaden Milroe exceeds at, is those deep passes. Like that guy, he just, he takes some sacks, but he makes these 30, 40-yard bombs. And his deep throw percentage is really good. So he's probably going to get some plays deep on you guys.
They're going to test him for sure. Yeah, Milroe is really good at throwing. Like he didn't seem that way in the beginning. Like he might be a little shaky, but yeah, he's gotten so much better. But I'm actually happy that we're getting Alabama instead of like a broken down Florida State without the quarterback. Because if you remember what happened last year, like Michigan got overconfident versus TCU, making fun of their small defensive line. And, it just felt like a foregone conclusion that Michigan was going to win that game. And then the opposite happened. I'm much happier with everyone saying that Michigan's going to lose. Michigan's got to play like a big boy team, essentially, with Alabama. I'm much happier with this situation.
And I want to see if anyone that's watching understands. But if 93% of the betting that's coming in is betting on Alabama, why isn't the spread changing? I don't understand.
It will. It's got to.
No, but does that make any sense? If 93% of people are betting on Alabama, why is this point spread still 1? I mean, it only went down 1.5 points.
Yeah, 1.5 points. We've got a while before the game, though. A lot can happen. Totally a lot. And I think a lot of people were surprised I think that Michigan ended up beating Ohio State the way they beat them. They were passing and running, both. I mean, it was a low-scoring game, but
I wasn't surprised by that anymore. You were surprised that they threw the passes to the tight ends over and over?
No,
I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Well, I didn't know how successful they'd be, and I didn't know they'd be that successful.
I told you our linebackers can't cover the tight ends at all.
Yeah,
it's brutal.
Michigan's going to have to avoid the Alabama secondary, and both of their lines are really good. So,
yeah, I mean, the crazy thing is you guys have killer corners, and they have killer corners and a safety. I think I don't know how good are your safeties.
Say that again.
How good are your safeties?
Oh, they're good, real solid.
I mean, are they A+ amazing safety? Because like Alabama has Caleb Downs, the freshman All-American safety. He's ridiculous. We tried to get him and came down to us in Bama. That guy's awesome. Plus, they have 3 awesome corners. I mean, their secondary is nasty, but I mean, you guys have 2 really good corners. But I think overall, the secondary, because of their safeties, is probably a little bit better.
Yeah, I think Michigan's secondary is not going to be the problem, but they've not had someone just hurling passes at them deep the whole game either. So that was what was going to make me a little scared if we had to play Washington and Penix just hurling deep balls down the field and having really good receivers. And all of a sudden, it's just a one-on-one issue.
Did you watch the Washington-Oregon game?
Yeah.
So that made me super jealous of having someone who's willing to play aggressive and just call amazing plays all day long. I mean, they were just pulling stuff out left and right, just like the play calls. I just felt like it was a master class in coaching. I mean, Oregon is supposed to have a good defense, so I'm not sure how much of it is just Pac-12. Even Oregon, like no one seems to play defense. But just watching the running game and Penix, and I think the biggest thing too with Washington that they have better than anyone. They have the best offensive line of anyone in the playoffs. They've only given up like 5 sacks all year, something stupid. Penix never gets sacked. I mean, he's kind of elusive, but it's not like he's Mike Vick or Caleb Williams back there. I mean, he's not like a super runner, but their offensive line gives him tons of time to pass, and they can run like crazy because they're opening up huge holes. So, I mean, that team, if their defense can just be okay, they're going to probably win it all because they think that offense is just unstoppable.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to have to wrap it up. This is going to be a short show, but yeah, thanks everyone in the chat for participating. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and we're out. Matt, talk to you soon. Thanks everyone. Right. Talk soon.
Go Bucks.
Go Blue.